What's this?
A Mech Warrior, that is the deck he's been playing on ladder, LifeCoach. Dog is gonna mulligan and butcher this. This is gonna be a completely butchered mulligan from Dog.
Yeah, Dog is, he kept Preparation and Sprint. Like, that's two typical cards, what you want against Warrior, because you want to play the long control game, but this is the exact opposite of a long control game from LifeCoach.
Yeah, oh my god, and you know what? He's got the Annoy-o-tron to annoy Dog, and now Dog's gonna be like, wait, what? What is this? No, Dog doesn't even react. It's like another day at the office. Never mind. Apparently him and I don't share the same surprise. Okay, now he is surprised.
Yeah, there's sort of a delay here.
Yeah, the Dog had this little, wait, what is this deck? Do I have to figure this out on my own? And LifeCoach is smiling behind his glasses, thinking to himself, I just one-upped you, mate.
Yeah, I believe both players can see each other, right?
I don't know that they can, but all I can tell you is we were talking on Skype with Dog recently, and in Complexity, since he's a teammate, and there's been a coalition to figure out what we need to do to beat LifeCoach since he's playing against him. And you know, a lot of I didn't participate in that discussion, but apparently the players were talking about the typical lineup that LifeCoach brings. It's a very similar lineup every time, but yeah, taken off guard by that unpredictability here, switching up his game.
Yeah, I think LifeCoach, as a poker player, he realizes the value of unpredictability.
Yeah, and I have to say, in this case, it's paying off greatly. Dog's going to have to be using a prep for a sap here to be able to contest the board, I suspect. Otherwise, this could get out of hand.
Yeah, although the Preparation wasn't able to be used with Sprint, in this matchup against aggro decks, you really want to prep like Phantom Knives or Sap in order to just get the tempo out. And I think Dog, even though he's not in the best position, it's going okay for him, I guess.
Yeah, and LifeCoach can just develop a Clockwork Gnome and Frothing Zerker. Worst case scenario, his opponent redaggers, attacks the Annoy-o-tron, Blade Flurries, and strays the Shredder into the Frothing, but that's the best case scenario.
Yeah. The problem is, like, the Arcanite Reaper is actually really valuable in this matchup.
10 damage.
It's gonna be just a Pyroblast for 5 mana, essentially, and also the Lothep will pretty much lock out the game for Dog.
Yeah, and I think Dog has his turn is mapped out ahead for him here. You just attack Annoy-o-tron or Blade Flurry, attack, pick your choice.
You just Blade Flurry here, and then Eviscerate.
Dagger, yeah. Blade Flurry, Eviscerate?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, I guess you could do that. I was thinking of Blade Flurry, Redagger, attack Annoy-o-tron, and trade the Shredder, but...
That's also possible. Yeah, I guess.
Although I do like your line of play quite a bit. It's pretty stable. You don't get to deal damage to the face, but you might not care as much. You might not care that much, that is. Yeah, I like your line of play a lot better.
Yeah, this is...
Well, there's 2 spare parts. A Finicky Cloakfield is very important for LifeCoach in this matchup. Or in any matchup, in fact. It's one of the best spare parts you can get on those charge minions.
Whirling Blades is alright, but...
Oh, okay, no, I think this is going to be way too much for Dog. Come on. Double Reaper? He can just go full face and nothing can stop him.
Exactly. Just over the next... if he just goes full face right now, over the next 3 turns, he's guaranteed to win pretty much.
Yeah.
The issue he has to contest with is that a lot of rogues these days have been adding in 1 Sludge Belcher into their decks, and that could be just really helpful.
Yeah. Oh man, Warbot in competitive play, ladies and gents. What is going on?
There we go. This is, I believe, the first Warbot we've ever seen in competitive play.
Yeah, I don't even know what he says when he comes in. That's just how rare that card is. And now LifeCoach just...
Noxious doesn't know what a card says when it comes out?
I don't know. I think it's something like enemies detected.
Wow, I don't believe that, Noxious.
I'm really not sure. You're asking me a question here that I have absolutely...
Although you know who would know?
Ben Brode.
Ben Brode, yeah. Person who recently beat you on a...
Yeah, I
certain
think,
show.
I didn't sleep well that night. That's my excuse.
Okay.
Actually, Warbot says battle detected. Battle detected. And battle commencing when he attacks. LifeCoach goes for the trade play. I have to say I'm a little surprised, but look at the amount of damage he's got next turn anyway. It's not really going to be that big of a deal for him. I can't believe what's happening. What is going on? Mech Warrior going to steal a game here from Dog.
Yeah.
The surprise factor is too strong. And wow, backstab takes damage.
My question is, how do you enrage a Warbot in this deck? I haven't really seen anything that can enrage it. Like maybe a Cruel Taskmaster?
Cruel Taskmaster is probably played in the deck. I would be very surprised if it wasn't. I would be, in fact, excessively surprised if it wasn't. There it is.
There it is.
Wow. This is a perfect curve. Look at that. Cruel Task, Orcron, Whirling Blades, go face, win. This is crazy. LifeCoach, I don't know what you're doing to me here, but I'm loving it.
Oh man, look at this Warbot. 5 damage Warbot.
Battle
4
commencing.
Oh,
Yep.
it's +1 in rage.
Yeah, it's not a huge amount of attack. Yeah,
I'm
it's just
a
plus
little
one attack.
disappointed there. I thought it was +2 in rage.
Well, Blizzard probably thought it was going to be a bit broken if you could get it to go up to 4 on turn 2. A 1-mana 4 attack minion gets a bit crazy. But I mean, it's good enough as it is, I feel. I mean, picture that +2 attack, you get a 5/2 on turn 2 with the Cruel Task. Alright, so Dog needs a miracle. That's not one.
So,
Sprint into preps with a lot of luck. I mean, you can't heal up, so does it really matter?
yeah, I don't think
It does, yeah.
like he needed a taunt or a sprint right now,
Yeah, definitely.
or a taunt or a heal. But
Well, he might get a taunt off the Powdered Shredder, you know? There's
that's true.
there's 4 of them. We have the Unstable Ghoul, the Frostwolf Grunt, Anodized Robobot, and what's the last one? Anoyotron, that's right.
Rotron, yeah. Unfortunately, Dog is not going to pull a Savitz. He's
Yeah.
not going to do what happened in the previous series
Yeah.
against 6-0. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, he loses this game.
Well, I have to hand it to LifeCoach. Mech Warrior. You know what? I'm happy to see that. The fact that this deck was actually brought to competitive play really makes my day. Now, Dog losing the game, of course, it feels a little bitter because it's a teammate. But I've got to say, first time I see Mech Warrior in a competitive environment, I'm honestly pretty hyped. Look at the diversity of the metagame right now. Look at how much new stuff you've seen with GVG. And the worst part is, as we're getting used to GVG, out comes Blackrock Mountain. So the surprises are just going to get bigger and bigger. So the metagame just gets more diverse.
Not just the worst part. I would say that's the best part.
The
Having
best
new
part,
decks out
yes.
all the time.
Yeah. Oh man, that was crazy. So LifeCoach is locking his warrior, which leaves him with Mage Warlock. And you know, I did say, you know, LifeCoach is fairly predictable in the deck that he's going to bring, but now I don't even know what to think.
Yeah, I will have to say that like the mage is probably going to still be Mech Mage unless LifeCoach entirely surprises us again. And then
Yeah.
the Warlock is probably going to be not Demon Handlock, but probably Handlock. I know Nilium as a team really respects Handlock as a class more than, or rather as a deck, more than Demon Handlock even.
It's a
And the
comfort pick for LifeCoach anyway. He's so good with it.
Yeah. I would say that is indeed his signature class, or his
Yeah.
signature deck even.
Well, we'll have to see what type it is. Maybe he knows that it might be a predictable, you know, point for him where he might be played into. You know, if Dog brings decks that he feels are good against Handlock, then LifeCoach might have to, you know, switch things around. But it's a deck that's so, you know, what's really great against Handlock is it has weaknesses, but even those weaknesses are not that bad. There is no deck that goes like 80% win rate against Handlock. Even Face Hunter tends to falter sometimes.
I would say maybe the best matchup would probably be Control Paladin.
Right.
But pretty much no one plays Control Paladin except for LifeCoach.
So he could counter himself, but who cares, right?
Or the other option, again, is you play Sneasel Shredder and you play Naz Dormu. And
Right, that
you-
works.
You try to get as many Naz Dormus as possible, even
Yeah.
faceless, double faceless with
Yeah,
Naz
to
Dormu.
get as many of them as you can. Because then LifeCoach might have to tech Twisting Nether
Yeah.
to deal with all of those Dormus.
Yeah, we saw Hosty once. He got Naz Dormu against LifeCoach, and LifeCoach just played horribly after that. Like, he actually played worse than like the average rank 10 player.
Yeah, and after 3 turns, I think he made like the biggest all-in to kill Nozdormu because he was like, you know what, I can't play under these conditions. This is driving me insane. And so he ended up making three weird plays to deal with it.
Basically, like I think he had the decision to either kill a 1/4 Naz Dormu because it was Aldord, or he could kill like a 4/4 minion.
Yeah.
And he chose to kill the Naz Dormu just because it was like making him play so badly in the following turns.
So
So-
LifeCoach is gonna be playing as Mage next. Dog's lineup to me feels like a really strong one against Mech Mage. If Dog is, you know, playing into Mech Mage here, it could. I mean, Priest, Rogue, and Mage. If it's Freeze Mage or Mid-Range Mage, that's generally pretty strong against Mech Mage. LifeCoach might end up being stuck with that deck.
Yeah. I also kind of have to question Dog's decision to bring Priest into his lineup, because if let's say LifeCoach is just left with his handlock, Dog still has to beat handlock with a Priest. Now, we've seen that's possible from Kalento versus Kaldi, but Kalento had to get like some really great draws and a really great Northshire Cleric, and it's just going to be a battle uphill. So I'm not sure why Dog brought Priest into this lineup.
I've got to be thinking he was teching specifically for something a LifeCoach had. Obviously not Mech Warrior, obviously not Handlock because there's a Priest, so it's got to be the Mage, but I'm not too sure about that. I'd have to ask him afterwards.
Maybe he was expecting a Control Paladin?
That's possible as well. That's not a bad matchup. You know, Rogue eats them alive. Mage, if it's Freeze Mage, tends to win against Control Paladin pretty much automatically. Because the game drags on, but the Paladin never kills the Mage. And Priest is also not too bad against Control Paladin if it's teched out properly and well built.
Yeah, Dog might just be targeting Control Paladin with the lineup, and
that makes a lot of sense.
That would have, if that's the case, it's gonna backfire. Yeah, exactly.
That's not gonna work out at all. So we'll be going to the next game soonish, as soon as LifeCoach is back. Rogue versus Mage. If this is Freeze Mage, Rogue generally has a pretty good matchup with the burst they can handle now. They can put out nowadays. If it's Mech Mage, Rogue is still slightly favored, depending on how it's built, but it's like a 55-45, 60-40 at the very, very most, depending on how stacked Dog's deck is.
Yeah, that being said, like, I don't think I've ever seen LifeCoach play Freeze Mage in his entire life.
No, I've seen him play Mech Mage all non-stop. He says, Lothar tells me, the LifeCoach tells him that is the best deck for Mage right now, so I would have to assume it is Mech Mage again, and he's played it pretty much every time so far.
Yeah, LifeCoach seems like a player who, he doesn't really experiment too much with a lot of decks that he's not comfortable with. Like, I don't believe he's played Freeze Mage probably, like, more than like 100 times in his life.
Yeah.
Back when LifeCoach was innovating Mid-Range Hunter, that was pretty much the only deck he could play. Mid-Range Hunter was so strong that he qualified for EU versus CN #1 just with Mid-Range Hunter alone. And when it came to the finals and his Hunter deck was knocked out, he had his two other decks that he actually just didn't know how to play at all.
Yeah, he just probably made a lot of mistakes not being, when you're not comfortable with them, the end result is that you just get pushed out of the tournament as a whole. So, well, going to the game here, it is in fact Mech Mage. Nothing out of the ordinary here. So LifeCoach definitely liking his mechs. In the Warrior, in the Mage, no problem. Just play mechs.
Yeah. One thing I learned from LifeCoach is that he actually likes to keep Goblin Blast Mage in his opening hand. Not because it curves out really well, but just because it's pretty much the strongest card in his entire deck, and he always wants to have it on turn 4. So I'm curious as to whether he makes that decision yet again, keeping Blast Mage on turn, or keeping Blast Mage
in his mulligan. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either, because it's also not too bad to contest the board. He could keep here. Actually, keeping everything doesn't feel like a bad play, because you've got the coin, so your curve is flawless. Coin, Mad Scientist, Anoyotron, Spider Tank, Blast Mage. You've got a perfect curve here in this exact hand. You don't need to find Clockwork Gnome.
Yeah. That being said, like, I like this one a little better, this mulligan choice, because the Noatron is just really weak as a turn 2 play, even though it is on curve. Especially against Rogue, you can just poke the Divine Shield away. Also, the Spider Tank. I feel like you want to play Goblin Blast Mage on turn 3.
With the coin.
Yeah, with the coin. So maybe Spider Tank isn't as good.
Or you could alternatively play the Tinker Town on turn 2. Pick your choice. But if it gets pinged off, which it will, then no point.
This is a really interesting hand by Dog.
Yeah. It's got potential, but it needs to find spells that are going to be super relevant. I mean, his next turn could be very good, prep Fan of Knives into SI, that's definitely possible. There are a lot of follow-ups that are great, but he needs to find what he really is going to be getting the most value out of with those preps.
The question here is, you're going to probably dagger, but do you actually even attack the 2-1? If you don't, you're telegraphing a Fan of Knives.
You can't not attack, I don't think. That's too telling. And you're giving... I mean, it all comes down to whether or not he plans to prep Fan of Knives next turn. But I think LifeCoach knows what to do with information. The last thing you want to feed LifeCoach is information about your hand, because he's really good at analyzing how things can go down the line. If you feed him anything about what you've got.
This is kind of an awkward hand for LifeCoach. He can play an easy Mad Scientist on this turn, but then he has 2 cards that he needs mechs on the board with to activate. And he has no mechs in his hand.
This is why I would have kept an Oiltron Spider Tank. I really felt like the curve was great, but we'll have to see how this pans out for him. Mad Scientist is not too bad. When it does die, it will give him the value that he probably wants with any body that he gets. So Backstab, play SI7. The problem is you cannot target your own SI with the SI. Because that would be nice. You give him an SI, then you kill it right away. Unfortunately, this is not going to be possible.
Yeah, this is actually a pretty awkward turn.
Well, I mean, Vile Teacher is bound to give you incredible value next turn. Right? Like, you could go for just SI Backstab. But then you feed him a Vile Teacher. Can you really do that? Maybe just SI straight up. Nothing else. I don't even hate that.
Yeah, I guess that feels really bad because you do have a Backstab in your hand, but...
Yeah. The Redagger is also not terrible.
Oh, I think what Dog is considering is he's going to poke the Mad Scientist, Redagger, and then set up for Violet Teacher into...
Prep, Phantom Knives, Backstab, and everything else.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can't fault him for that. LifeCoach is going to have to try to figure out what cards his opponent has. He's got to put him on a range here. Because if he makes a play like this, you're thinking to yourself, well, there's something fancy in there. And I need to think about it. So LifeCoach is going to take his time. He's got a smile on his face. Maybe he's devised what Dog has.
Mad Scientist is actually not a great draw. Unless LifeCoach runs more than one type of secret.
Counterspell is sick.
Yeah. We've seen Lothar run Counterspell before in his Mech Mage decks, but I don't think I've ever seen LifeCoach do so.
Yeah, Lothar is a bit unique in that way. I've seen a few players besides him run it, but Lothar is definitely the player that I associate most with those with that specific tech. Oh man, the lack of mechs is biting LifeCoach in the butt.
I feel like LifeCoach has like every card in his deck that's not a mech in his hand.
Yeah. Hello, hello, hello.
Nope.
That would have been nice to keep.
No hellos, unfortunately.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Do you see the April Fool's joke from Blizzard was that now basically when Anoitrons die, they say goodbye, goodbye, goodbye?
They should totally make that. They should do that. Oh my goodness, look at this. And Dog is gonna get the turn of his dreams.
Oh wow, there we go.
Look at this beauty turn. This is incredible, and there's nothing the LifeCoach can do to contest it unless he top decks another Clockwork Gnome to enable the Blast Mage. Those 1/1s are gonna be sticking around.
Yeah, this is like the dream scenario for Rogue. Pretty much every time you have Rogue against pretty much anything, this is exactly what you want on turn 4, and this is like the farthest ahead you can ever get on turn 4, pretty much.
Yep, and the fun part is that LifeCoach does have an answer to the 3/5, but not to the 1/1s.
Yeah.
So the question becomes, do I dump my minions on this board and just Frostbolt the Violet Teacher, or do I try to get a bit more value out of what I've got right now?
You kind of do have an answer for the 1/1s in the form of the Blast Mage, but again, you have no mechs to deal with it. I think at this point, you really want to stem the damage from the Violet Teacher.
I think so too. You could reversing switch it and Frostbolt it, and then play Cogmaster on an empty board. Then you get a minion from Mirror Entity. It's that or you Fireball it, which I'd rather not do, but... And then again, you know what? Frostbolt can be used on the phase when Tinker's Sharp Sword comes out.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe there's more lenient value, or sleeping value, that is.
You always love it when
Frostbolt.
Your opponent Frostbolts your, or Fireballs your minions.
Yep, you're like,
That's
you know what? That's 6 damage out of my face. Happy with that. Now, I am expecting Naked SI into Backstab hit, but we'll have to see.
Backstab what?
Like Backstab and Dagger hit.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah. Yeah, it's not bad.
The alternatives feel a little weird. Like Ballad Shredder into Mirror Entity is probably not the best you're gonna get.
I feel like playing a Naked SI is fine here because you already have enough removal in your hand anyway that you're not like too sad about like giving up the SI agent's effect essentially.
Exactly. You don't really need it at this point. You've got Eviscerate, and the interesting part is that by keeping the Eviscerate, you know, he's got damage to the face that's possible, but it's also removal to keep against Blast Mage. You want to keep that Eviscerate for Blast Mage if it does come out, because a 5-4 is nothing to scoff at. Uh-oh.
Hello. Hello, dog.
And the eyes of LifeCoach widen here.
He's looking back and forth. He's looking at one side. He sees a Goblin Blast Mage.
And the other side?
Yeah, he's like in another trance. Like, what can these two do together?
Yeah, is that a combo? Can I work them together?
It's funny because like LifeCoach is like, we all know LifeCoach is one of the best Hearthstone players in the world.
Yeah.
But sometimes his facial reactions seem like he's completely new to the game, and he's just like wondering, wow, this card can go with this card. It's like, wow, that's amazing.
This is great. I never thought of this. I put Blast Mage in my deck, but just because I started on Hearthbone, I didn't know what it did. Well,
What it's gonna do is clear all these 1/1s.
I mean, I feel like you could Frostbolt Mad Scientist Cogmaster here. It's also a viable play, because you don't even have to waste your coin. You could keep that for Archmage Antonidas to reach for lethal.
Well, I feel like because LifeCoach kept Blast Mage in his opening hand, he's gonna want to play it, right? Like, if you keep it in your opening hand, you want to play it as soon as possible, usually, right?
Really? I don't know. I feel like this is a great turn for Mad Scientist Cogmaster. It's a great turn. And he does go for that, so apparently LifeCoach, his line of play is in line with what I thought, but the thing is, how is Dog going to handle this? His opponent is way too high on health, he hasn't found a sprint yet. This is admittedly a little tricky.
Ooh. So is everything going to trade in now? Yep. Actually, a slight misplay by Dog. From the Pilot Shredder positioning. If you place in the middle, you have the possibility to get a Direwolf Alpha or a Flame Tongue Totem.
From the Pilot Shredder, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And also, even with Pilot Sky Golems, as you can see in LifeCoach's hand, it also, you want to place it in the middle, because then you have the possibility of, like, Wii Spellstopper, for example.
Yeah, which is great. Getting the Wii Spellstopper prevents it from... a lot of people probably don't even know what that is, by the way.
It's a 2/5 that makes adjacent minions unable to be targeted by spells.
LifeCoach is not too happy with the way this Blast Mage panned out, but I feel like it's perfectly fine. I mean, if you sacrifice a Mad Scientist here, what is Dog gonna do?
Dog is gonna get a Doomsayer out, of course.
And no, but a
Ooh.
great mini bot. This is insane. Well, insane. It's great. It kills the Anotron. It's not a big worry, and then Dog can just play whatever he wants here to deal with this board. Oh, wow. Nice find. He can empty his hand here if he wants.
So there is a mirror entity on the board. So
Yeah.
Dog has to consider that.
And he will. I mean, I think he will. I mean, this prep Eviscerate into SI play into Pilot Shredder is just too good to pass. You're getting a perfect board wipe. This is insane.
Oh man.
Look at that. Oh, wow. LifeCoach is in a world of hurt after this point.
And Dog is even going to be able to use up his entire hand and all his mana.
Yeah, and he gets the complete board. LifeCoach has no way to handle this. I think that SI7 top deck was exactly what Dog wanted here. He's used up 2 backstabs, so there were no more of those left.
Oh, Mech Warper. That's actually a card that's useful.
Yeah, it actually curves in with the Pilot Sky Golem fairly nicely, but now LifeCoach wants to fight Archmage Antonidas or Dr. Balanced.
Yeah, I mean, he still has the point.
Oh my god, Dog. What is that?
That is a sprint, of course, and that's gonna be the exact game plan of the Rogue. LifeCoach can't. He falls back in his chair.
Yeah, I would too. Usain Bolt came in here just way too fast. LifeCoach, oh my god, he knows, you know what, Dog needed that exact card. That exact card was needed here for Dog. You can't actually afford stalling yourself to deal with that Pilot Sky Golem, because if you do, you give the mage the possibility of swinging back in the game in a very, very straightforward manner. So,
well, LifeCoach does draw a card, but this is kind of the opposite of Archmage Antonidas, getting on the opposite side of the curve.
Yeah, it's the lowest possible card he plays in his deck, unless he's playing target dummies with Mimiron's head. I don't see him playing anything lower than this.
I would like to see maybe attack to the face here, and then ping off the
Shredder?
piloted Shredder.
Yeah, I think you ping out the Body Shredder first to make sure that nothing drastic comes out. Although that way you might get a 2-drop with taunt that you won't want to see.
Yeah, exactly. Like I
think you're right.
I really don't want to see like a taunt and then you're forced to attack it.
Yeah.
For example,
there's only 4 of them out of like 67, I think, 68.
Like imagine if you don't attack first and then a Noatron comes out.
Oh man, I think I quit the game.
Just quit Hearthstone.
Yeah, completely. Dog again, you know, with that slight mispositioning of the Powder Shredder, as you mentioned earlier. Wow, he's going to be able to use his dagger on minions.
Damn, I didn't think that was possible from Rogue.
Wow.
But does the dagger now deal 2 damage?
3.
3 damage, wow.
Yeah.
So he threw a deadly poison. Okay.
Another sprint. Okay, Dog has got cards for days now. And he's even got, you know, double spell damage in hand with the Blade Flurry. This is as good as it gets for him. But now he actually has to address this board, I feel. I mean, if Dog's been keeping track, the coin wasn't used and a reversing switch. I mean, there's a spare part in LifeCoach's hand. So the only thing that really worries him is something like an Antonitis, I would say. So he might just decide to go full face and let LifeCoach top deck and deal with the board. What do you think is the right line to play here?
Let's see, like, I would be worried about that second Fireball. So I would think that I would probably try to clear off this piloted Sky Golem somehow. Maybe something like Blood Mage into...
Flurry Fan of Knives?
Yeah, just start off with the fan and then see what you draw. Okay, he's going to go with the Azure Drake instead.
Into Fan of Knives, possibly. Oh, that's almost good, but I'm not sure it is right now. You've got a half durability dagger. I would never take that risk.
Yeah, I want to see a Fan of Knives here and then probably clear off the piloted Sky Golem.
Yep, definitely. Well, he does go for the Fan of Knives at the very least. Or the Blade Flurry here for 3 damage, which is probably even better in this case. That's the worst possible... No, wait, Jeeves is worse, but it's one of the worst 4-drops you can get.
Oh, that was pretty amazing turn.
Yep, and Dog is dominating this board, and honestly, I don't know. The only way this is going to work for LifeCoach is if the emergency coolant freezes the minion, that is going to be tinkered. That is pretty much... And actually, that might not even do it.
Yeah, it might just be like if a second Blade Flurry is drawn, which it is.
GG, yeah, okay.
Of course.
Wow, back to back to back to back, Dog. Nice draws, mate. That was really sick. Then again, both players played pretty well. The only thing that I really noticed was, as you mentioned, and I think that's a really solid point that you made about the positioning of the Powder Shredders, right? The fact that if you put them in the middle, you always have a higher chance of getting better value out of them. So definitely something to consider. Powder Shredder is a card that you can misplay with quite frequently. And you remember early GVG when nobody popped the Shredder before they did anything else? They always did it last, and I think a few of them got punished for that very often.
In the same respect, I feel like when players begin playing Hungry Dragon, they're going to kind of misplay in the beginning because they're not going to play around the Shield Bearers or the Leper Gnomes or whatever other 1-drops that are relevant. Perhaps not target dummies. What other 1-drops are really interesting? Blood Imps.
Blood Imps are great.
Yeah.
Blood Imps are fun to play with. Zombie Chow is the one that you want to have, but you can't really misplay around Zombie Chow usually. Well, I guess you could, but generally speaking, you're happy with the heal. There's a few 1-drops that could be problematic. Shield Bearer is probably one of the most frustrating ones to handle.
Gold Shard Footman.
Yeah, those two are probably going to be some of the most frustrating experiences players will have. Even a Voidwalker. Those three taunts are going to be very annoying for at least a little while. And
you do have to play around taunts when you're killing off pilot shredders.
Yeah.
But I feel like the ratio of the number of taunts as 1-drops is higher than the ratio of the number of taunts as 2-drops. Like I think there's only 3 or 4 2-drops that are taunts.
There's only 4 for
there's only 4, but there's 3 for 1-drops, but there are way fewer 1-drops in the game. There's like a third of the number of 1-drops, right?
Interesting. I didn't really calculate it. I just know there's a lot of them from when I look at my collection, but there's more 2-drops for sure. Like the amount of 2-drops is just incredible. The ratio is higher for 1-drops, and that might be a drawback for Hungry Dragon by default because it taunts itself. It gives the opponent the ability to protect itself against a 5-attack minion. So we'll have to see once BRM fully comes out. And I'm getting really excited because, I'm casting tournaments nowadays. I'm casting the Kungwin Pro League. We've got like 4 weeks left before the playoffs, and BRM is going to be releasing as we go along. So as the metagame evolves with BRM, I'm going to be witnessing it on a weekly basis, and that's something I'm really excited for.
Yeah, we have the next matchup coming up, and it's going to be Dog with Priest and LifeCoach with Warlock. We heavily speculated that LifeCoach would be bringing his Handlock, but Dog bringing his Priest might be exactly what LifeCoach wants. We saw Kaldi defeat, Kolento defeat Kaldi in the unfavorable Priest versus Handlock matchup. Can we see it again from Dog?
What I think, honestly, at this point, is that Dog is targeting Mage. This lineup from him seems very out of color. It seems very unusual. A Priest for Dog. I never thought I'd see that. Basically, it's a class that I just don't foresee Dog playing. So I feel like he's just adapting his lineup to LifeCoach's, because LifeCoach, as you mentioned earlier, he does pick Handlock, he does pick Control Pally, and he has a lot of comfort picks that you see recurring picks systematically, but the one he brings the most is by far, I think, Mech Mage so far. It's like his go-to mid-range aggro deck.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of Dogs thinking about this match from the type of Priest that this is. Is there going to be light bombs in this deck, or is it going to be more of a standard Aconite kind of Priest, or is it going to be kind of more like the Kolento type of Priest with the Recombobulators, the Double Shadow Madness, and the Shrinkmeisters?
Yep. It's probably going to be something like Kolento's lineup, as you mentioned. Oh man, I'm feeling a little sick today. I got my throat feels like it's tickling, Just feel like coughing on the mic all day.
Well, I am coughing on the mic all day, so yeah. We have a lot in common, Noxious.
Well, that's no problem. We're going to be seeing a lot of... I'm wondering now, you see Dog with his hand, the double Northshire Cleric, do you keep that against Handlock? Or do you not? Wait. What are you singing?
What are you singing?
I'm actually liking Dog's hand right now. But it feels like it's an anti-aggro deck, right?
Well, I feel like this is kind of the Chinese Priest that we've been seeing lately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's fully equipped to deal with not Handlock, but Mage. Much more so than with Handlock. It's got the Deaths, it's got the Velen. And I think Velen's Chosen is also going to be very important here for him.
Yeah. I actually think this deck, compared to Standard Priest, it's going to be actually really good against Handlock because it really runs 2 Light Bombs, which are really important.
Yeah, Light Bomb is MVP against Handlock, and I think if Dog brought that deck, he's going to have a much better matchup against this in general. Light Bomb is so strong against Giants. It's strong against Dr. Boom on its own. Can you believe that? You can actually 1-for-1 Dr. Boom. You're going to take 25,000 damage in the process, but you can 1-for-1 versus Dr. Boom.
Yeah, so just for players who are kind of new to the game or haven't been in touch with the meta in the last week or two, this is a kind of a Chinese Priest list that includes Death Lords, 2 Velen's Chosen, perhaps Giblin Stalker, and also Light Bombs. It aims to build up an early board and then buff the minions with Velen's Chosen, and then in a late game, it can deal with a lot of threats with the double Light Bomb.
Alright, so we see the Twilight Drake come out. So usually a pretty big, problem for Priest, but this 412 minions for Dog is going to be handling the Drake quite well. And the thing is, LifeCoach doesn't even want the Iron Beak Owlet. You want to get that free minion out if given the chance. So it's even harder for LifeCoach to deal with this than it is for Dog to deal with the Drake at this point.
Yeah, one of the strengths of this deck is that you can kind of counter your own Death Lords with the minions that come out of the Death Lords with Light Bombs. So it's
exactly.
Just value.
It's kind of like Freeze Mage, and not Freeze Mage, but Mill Mage. When they force minions out with the Death Lords and they Frost Nova Doomsayer, they're going to be able to kill whatever you get, so they're happy to speed it up for you. Get those minions out for free as fast as possible so I can kill them faster, instead of having you dictate when you get to play them. And that's especially true when you get a minion like Jaraxxus, right? If you can get the Shadow Word Pain to Jaraxxus that comes out from Death Lord, this is a big deal. Now, in this case, it's not going to work because LifeCoach has it in his hand, but it does happen quite frequently.
Yeah, or even possibly better, you can Shrink Master and Cabal Jiraxis. Which we see is very
That's a dream.
From Dog's hands.
Yep, I mean, on turn 8, that is, he's got a Shrinkmeister Cabal for Twilight Drake, Sludge Belchers. He can actually set up a really nice play here. A few nice plays, even. Oh, hello, Gilbin Stalker.
Hello, hello. And we can see that, like, this is almost the exact list that Savitsu's pretty much card for card, even.
Yeah, I'd venture to say this is probably the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Now, if LifeCoach had a Siphon Soul, he could deal with that Deathlord, but how happy are you to Siphon Soul a Deathlord?
I'm not really sure, like...
Yeah, it's like, weird, isn't it?
I guess it feels a little better because the Deathlord has a Villain's Chosen on it. So it's kind of like a 1 for 2. But the Deathlord has also just gotten so much value in lately.
Yeah, I mean, so far, it's been able to deal with this Twilight Drake, which usually is the problematic card for Priest. We mentioned that earlier, since they've been cutting silences. Well, more health for you, LifeCoach. Enjoy.
Yeah, the Zombie Chows are actually, like, they're really bad in this matchup, but they're alright in the sense that they can kind of control the health of the Warlock player. Just allow them not to play Molten Giants as early as you like them to.
Alright, so we're looking at this board here, and it feels Sylvanas is posing a bit of a problem, because if you let it sit there, he's going to be getting value out of it for sure. You can't rush to kill it, because you're going to feed him... I mean, I guess you might be okay with getting a Deathlord. It's not that bad. How happy are you on a scale of 1 to 10 to get a Deathlord? To give him a Deathlord?
The thing is, like, a lot of the minions in your own deck aren't very high value. It's a deck with a lot of answers, but not a lot of threats. Like, for example, Dr. Boom isn't even in this deck, and Ragnaros isn't in this deck. The highest value minion is the Sylvanas, and a lot of the other minions in your deck, like Cabal, like, you want their battle cry effect. So, I don't think, like, giving your opponent a Deathlord is okay, but having the effect come out for you isn't really the best.
Alright, so he's gonna just set up a point where if Sylvanas attacks into Deathlord, she just trades 1 for 1 and LifeCoach. I don't think he's gonna like that very much. It's kind of a weak Sylvanas at this point. Yeah,
the heal is actually very interesting. It makes sure that that LifeCoach can't just Mortal Coil his own Deathlord. And that actually turns out to be very relevant. That being said, you can still
get a minion out of it, right?
Yeah. And also, you can... if LifeCoach had it, he could have Earthen Ring Farseered his Sylvanas to keep it alive.
Right. But you're playing into Nova a little bit with that play, because Sylvanas then dies to it.
Yeah. I have to say, like, one of the weaknesses of this Priest against Handlock is, even though you have the double Light Bombs in your deck, you don't have Circle of Healings. And I feel like Circle of Healing is actually, like, a decent card in the matchup because it allows you to get insane Northshire Cleric draws from your Northshire Clerics. And that's one of the ways, as we saw from Kalento versus Kaldi, one of the ways you do win this matchup by kind of keeping up with the Handlock in terms of cards drawn in your deck.
Yeah, and one of the coolest things also about that is that you... Oh, wow.
Oh.
Well, that's not what Dog wanted to see without that Shadow Word Death in his hand. And he's going to, you know, taunt up everything, put a lot... Oh, man, LifeCoach is putting so much pressure on this board. Dog is going to be hard-pressed to answer this.
Yeah, not only is it a lot of pressure, but also it's not really too vulnerable to Light Bomb. Like, a lot of things will still survive after a Light Bomb comes out.
Yeah, if a Light Bomb comes out, which in this case it won't, so maybe a Thought Steal for answers. But, I mean, you could try a Belcher to stall with a Gilbin Stalker, you know, just for the sake of having it. Because, I mean, at this point, what is the Gilbin Stalker going to do for you, right? What does it accomplish? Almost nothing. Oh, a Hellfire's found.
The issue with Thought Steal is that your opponent already has the Big Game Hunter in his hand, and that's like the ideal card you would want out of the Thought Steal.
Yeah, you don't know what you're going to find until you Thought Steal, so it's a gamble, but... You know, this is not the same quality of Thought Steal that we saw from Kalento earlier with the Molten Giants and then the Loatheb into Drake. Those were sick Thought Steals. This one is good because it gives you piece of removal you can use at whim, but it's not nearly as strong. Like, it's not going to contest the board as well.
Hellfire and Dark Bomb seem like cards that when you have an advantage, there are like tools to help you like deal with smaller threats, but they're not tools that can really help you come back into this game. Like, you just dealt 3 damage to a mountain giant. How impactful really is that going to be?
Well, it might help out over a few turns with Hellfire Nova, but for the time being, it's nothing you're really excited about. I mean, if LifeCoach makes the mistake of Hellfiring this, but otherwise, I don't think so. Oh man, look at those demons.
Yeah, so this is not pure handlock, and it's I guess it's kind of more like a demon handlock, but also it has mountain giants. So again, like a card that is in the middle of the spectrum, or a deck that's in the middle of the spectrum. It has some elements of handlock and some elements of demon lock. I would say out of the standard demon, it's between the standard demon lock right now from Strifecrow and the traditional handlock that we see.
Alright, so now Dog has to decide whether he wants to steal that 3-5, that 3-4 that is, with Taunt, or not. I mean, his lines of play are all fairly bad, if I have to be honest with you here. If he had 9 mana, he could get a good Hellfire Nova. It would be amazing, killing that giant with Hellfire and heal himself up a little bit. He forces a demon on the board, which is pretty bad, but at the same time, it's better than what he's got so far. Taunting up might just not work at all.
Pretty much, like, I don't really see too many winning plays here.
Yeah, I think stealing that 3-4 is your best bet. And it's not even that strong, to be honest.
Yeah, you're going to be so weak to Shadow Flame, though.
Yeah. Alright, so what if Mal'Ganis comes out? Does that do anything? It buffs up the Void Caller, you can kill the 3-4, go face for 11. I think I'd consider that line of play. It's early for Mind Control, so you're still good. Is there a lethal looming around?
Let's see.
So... Shadow Flame Hellfire. What's that do? If you Shadow Flame the defensive Argus and then Hellfire, you're 1-off lethal. Right? 12, 15. Yeah, you are, in fact. Well, I think 1-off lethal is good enough against Priest.
That's fair enough.
I'd take that. I'd take that play. Or just straight up Shadow Flame play on the Void Caller. That's even sturdier.
It's pretty good getting Mal'Ganis on the field. You've already seen that your opponent probably doesn't have Light Bomb, so you don't have to play around that as much. You can get a free tap here.
Yep. No damage taken. Pretty good value.
Yet another Void Caller. And why not just throw the Ancient Watcher onto the field?
Yeah, now I really don't see what Dog could do in this position. I mean, unless he finds some kind of miraculous Sylvanas Shadow Word Death play and then he steals Mal'Ganis, but other than that, even then BGH takes that, so that's going to be game. Yeah, I think Dog is going to have to play Belcher Deathlord and hope for the best. Hey, he could play Sylvanas, I guess, and he just concedes. Alright, so that's going to bring down LifeCoach's lineup to a Mech Mage, and Dog still has his Priest and his Mage to deal with it.
Yeah, so Mage is going to be left, and I feel like this Priest is going to deal fairly well with it.
Mech Mage, yeah.
Yeah, again, it has the early game, 2 Zombie Chows, 2 Northshire Clerics, 1 Giblin Stalker, and 2 Deathlords, 1 Dark Cultist, and then it curves up usually to 2 Piloted Shredders. I'm just describing all the cards in the deck right now, but yeah, once you get anything on the board, you can buff it up with Valen's Chosen, and usually it's too much value for the Mech Mage to deal with.
Exactly.
You also, in the late game, you have the Light Bombs and Holy Novas to deal with the board, so if Dr. Boom even comes out, you have an answer to that. If a 5/4 Goblin Blast Mage comes out, you also have an answer to that. So even though the early game minions there are a lot of 2/3s and a lot of 3/4s for Mech Mage, in the late game, that's when Light Bombs are going to shine.
Yeah, so we're going to be looking at Dog playing his Mage versus LifeCoach's Mage. So it may be a Mech Mage mirror match, or perhaps Dog is playing something else entirely, which is possible. Something like a Freeze Mage does pretty well against Mech Mage as well. Exceptionally well, in fact, I would say. Yeah,
Dog is a player who really favors Freeze Mage. He's played a lot when he was over in China playing the NEL tournament, and it's his favorite Mage deck. So it's definitely a possibility that Dog will bring Mage. Also, Freeze Mage is a deck that is really good against what LifeCoach usually brings sometimes. Like, it's pretty good against Handlock. It's good against Mech Mage. It's also good against Control Paladin.
Yeah.
So just a pretty good pick from Dog if he does decide to bring the Freeze Mage.
Yeah, I think this lineup from him is going to be able to deal theoretically pretty well with the Mech Mage that's remaining. So there's a possibility that Dog climbs back up and takes the first match from LifeCoach in this entire KPL. So LifeCoach is going to be back very soon. We've got Missing in Action. I think he went to pick up some water. Speaking of which.
Yeah, it's important to hydrate.
All right.
So refreshing.
Yeah, I know. It's like water elemental level. I'm just curious to know though if Dog even plays Mech Mage. I don't remember seeing him play that deck very much. I've seen one. I think I've seen him once with that deck. But as you said, Freeze Mage is a deck that I've seen him play most of the time. Very much so over Mech Mage.
Yeah, the game is about to begin, so we're gonna see what type of archetype Dog is gonna bring. And yeah, we're getting into the game right now, and we see Ice Block and Blizzard. So you know what that tells me? It actually tells me it's either a Freeze Mage or a Fatigue Mage, but
yeah.
I don't think we're going to see a Fatigue Mage coming out from Dog anytime soon.
Yeah, I think Tiddler Celestial also runs Blizzard in his aggro deck, if I remember correctly. I'm not too sure if that's the exact list I'm thinking about, but he does run Ice Blocks in it, which makes it very interesting. But this is not... this is probably not it. Yeah, I would venture to say Dog's just going to play a standard Freeze Mage.
Dog has been in China for a few weeks, but I don't think he's really caught the
Swag Celestial.
Yeah, the Swag Celestial fever just of yet. So it's going to be a pretty interesting matchup. It's going to be Mech Mage versus Freeze Mage, and indeed, as you said, usually I feel like most players would say that the Freeze Mage is favored. It just has all the right tools, all the board clears possible. And then it's able to kind of outrace the opponent with Alex Straza into perhaps just a lot of fireballs. Usually how Freeze Mage wins this game, though, is it just essentially runs your opponent out of cards. Yeah. Also, we see like this opening from LifeCoach. He has 2 Mad Scientists in his hand, which is actually not that great for... like, usually it's really good against most matchups, but against Freeze Mage, it's terrible because your opponent can possibly just play a Doomsayer into the Mirror Entities and just wipe out your board for free.
So LifeCoach is going to have, LifeCoach's got to know that Dog is generally a Freeze Mage player. Right? He has that information probably from watching past VODs. These players probably know enough to scout their opponent before they face them into an actual tournament. So if LifeCoach knows that, then he probably knows the Mad Scientists have little value at the moment.
No. And we have a ping, and I think LifeCoach is going to be a little sad that he sees this ping, because from that ping, he can safely deduce that it is indeed a Freeze Mage.
And as a result, he's going to be putting down the most threatening minions he's got, which is minions that hit for 2 damage instead of 1, like the Neutron.
Ooh, this Snow Chugger is so threatening that he decides to freeze the Neutron. Ooh. Oh, we actually see a Mechanical Yeti coming out from LifeCoach.
That is good.
Yeah,
for him.
It's actually a card that most players have cut in their mech decks recently, because you already have so many 4-drops. You have the Shredders and you have the Blast Mages that having just a 5th 4-drop they feel like it clutters their hand a bit more. So they've been cutting that card in favor of higher value cards like the Lothab, Double Azure Drake, and even piloted Sky Golems.
Yeah, in this matchup, though, I feel like it's a double-edged sword because your opponent is getting a spare part, and if it's Freeze Mage, they've got Antonidas. Sure, you do have it as well, but that spare part can be as useful to your opponent as it can be for you, so you've got to be a little careful when you do drop the Yeti. And I know that a lot of players do sometimes cut Shredders to put in Mechanical Yetis or Water Elementals, but it's not the most common occurrence in general. Yeah. And Dog finds his first piece of AoE. So he might be getting himself a good Arcane Intellect next turn.
Yeah, everything looks... I would say everything looks pretty good for Dog at this point. He does have double Ice Lance, which isn't really what you want, but he has a Secret up, and he has the Arcane Intellect in his hand. He also has a stall in the form of Blizzard, so I think he's in a pretty good position at this point.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you here. He just needs to find a bit more AoE off that Arcane Intellect, and then he's going to be set to deal with the Mech Mage's board.
Yeah, what he actually needs to find is a Doomsayer off the Arcane Intellect, because
Yeah.
that'll just instantly clear the board because his opponent has a Mirror Entity on the field.
Yep, and this is kind of the biggest weakness, I guess, of Mech Mage, because the only secret they really play consistently is Mirror Entity, and what that ends up doing is, by playing against Freeze Mage, Doomsayer just guarantees that they're gonna wipe the boards. It's like you're getting it off Shredder. It's the perfect outcome for Freeze Mage.
Doomsayer is so strong against Mech Mage that we've even seen players like Tice use it in Control Warrior.
Yeah, I've played the Doomsayer in the Oil Rogue for a while. When Mech Mage was all over the place, I played 2 Doomsayers instead of the Auto Barbers, and that was a tech that really, really helped the Mech Mage matchup, which went from a small edge to a huge one.
Speaking of Doomsayer, here it is. The real question is, do you actually play it on this turn?
Nah, I don't think so. There's no real point. You gotta wait a little bit, right? Oh, you could play that if you wanted. But you've got the Ice Barrier already on board. You could get your first Ice Block from Mad Scientist, but you really want to trigger the Mirror Entity with Doomsayer, so there's no point throwing away the Mad Scientist.
Yeah, so basically, Dog can get a feed board clear for 2 mana at any time he wants, so he kind of wants his opponent to overcommit the board and then just spring off that Doomsayer. And I feel like it's going to be very natural for Mech Mage to overcommit, because that's pretty much the only way they're going to win the game. Just play as many minions as they can onto the board and hope that their opponents don't have really any answers.
Yep, and I think this is what LifeCoach is going to do. Put 2 minions at a time, force, board wipes are going to take 2 minions at once instead of 30. The old Zoo conundrum, right? Where when you were playing Zoo decks against something like a Freeze Mage, you had to play your minions 2 to 3 at a time at the very most. Otherwise, you fed them value, and you really can't afford that.
Yeah, this is slightly awkward. I think Dog really wants to play both the Mad Scientist and the Ice Barrier.
I like Blizzard, honestly, though. I'll be honest, I really do like Blizzard. It pops the Shredder, and...
Yeah, I mean, I like Blizzard, too, as a company. Like, they make great games.
Yeah, they're great.
Hearthstone.
Except Diablo 3. Besides Diablo 3, I really love Blizzard.
Whoa, shots fired at Blizzard.
Oh, goodness.
Okay, so it's going to be... That's interesting. A ping. So, with these consistent pings...
Oh, I like that. He's going to be able to take it out next turn and then draw the Doomsayer after it pops. That's very, very consistent with his lines of play. I like it. And LifeCoach is just going to play another Piloted Shredder to frustrate Dog. And here I thought I was going to get a board clear. I was thinking Dog.
Yeah, so what Dog can do now is he can Blizzard, and then next turn he can ping and Doomsayer on the remaining Pilot Shredder that survives.
I suspect that is the best line of play. You've got Ice Block developed. The worst that could happen here is that a Whirling Zap-O-Matic comes out of that thing. But oh wow, Vitality Totem such value.
The opposite of what LifeCoach wants. I think maybe literally anything would have been better, right?
Novice Engineer would have been better, in fact. Yeah. Captain Sparrowt even.
Actually, Explosive Sheep would have been worse.
Doomsayer would have been worse.
Yeah, Doomsayer would have been worse. So maybe like the third worst option.
One of the worst.
Maybe Unstable Ghoul is worse. I'm not even sure.
Yeah, by a slight margin.
Yeah. So maybe like the fourth or fifth worst?
It's in the worst. Yeah. It's in the bottom, 7.77 percentile.
Sure, we'll go with that.
Yeah, that sounds mathematically correct. Well, LifeCoach is going to go full face, let Dog get the board clear that he wants. I'm just going to pew spells at his face until he falls down and kills over and dies. But LifeCoach knows there's a Doomsayer. I mean, Dog has been telegraphing that line of play since the beginning. And, oh, Blood Mage Style knows. That's not a bad outcome. LifeCoach is going to get himself another card draw on top of this. Which I really do like for him. So, Dog is going to be cycling Mad Scientist and Loot Hoarder potentially here, since they have no value outside of being cycle.
Yeah, it's actually going to be really great. But, oh wow, the second Mirror Entity is drawn. That's going to be a dead card for LifeCoach.
Yeah, he doesn't want to play it at all. I mean, I guess you could play it to deter some kind of Archmage Antonidas play, but at the same time, you're exposing yourself to another board wipe. Really, you can't do that.
Yeah, so unfortunately for LifeCoach, he's given Dog just enough time to draw that Flame Strike, which will be able to kind of close out the game. at this point, LifeCoach really needs his Archmage Antonidas to defeat his opponent, or he's going to be kind of drawing dead.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you here. There's really nothing I can see LifeCoach get here outside of a sequence of spare parts into Archmage Finicky Cloakfield, into an insta-win, insta-life, Ice Block pop. But that's as good as it's going to get. It's not going to get any better than that.
So pretty much everything comes down on the field at this point.
Yeah, he's going to be keeping a clockwork.
Not the clockwork, no. I guess
the
that's
Blast
valuable.
Mage, yeah.
Oh yeah. Keeping it for the Blast Mage is actually really nice.
And, that's a pretty straightforward turn for Dog. You just Acolyte of Pain, ping, Cone of Cold.
Yeah, seems pretty good. Set up for the Flame Strike next turn. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and I mean, he's got Ice Barrier set up, and he's got Ice Block set up. The only way the Ice Block is getting popped is if LifeCoach has a second Fireball with Frostbolt, and a ping, which is admittedly fairly unlikely. It's funny that I see Dog playing that Cone of Cold, because I don't see every Freeze Mage do.
Yeah, it's not only unlikely, it's impossible.
Yeah,
because he's played one Fireball.
Already, yeah. He needs to find another one.
He would need a Fireball, Frostbolt, ping.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
Oh, sorry.
That's fine.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess you can play one Clockwork Gnome in order to get a spare part.
Yeah, so you can maybe get yourself a good Archmage. I mean, you're pretty close to getting it off. It's just that Dog's gonna get his stuff faster than yours. Yeah. Aha! Actually,
you don't have a weapon yet.
No.
Oh, you meant Archmage and not South Sea Deckhand.
Yeah. Yeah, I meant the haha from Archmage Antonidas.
Isn't it aha?
Right, it's not the haha, right.
Yeah.
Aha! You require my assistance? Well, Dog is getting full-blown value out of this. Look at that. Perfect Flame Strike. Perfect Acolyte of Pain ping value. This is just the craziest Acolyte of Pain. He has just everything he wants here. Oh, man.
Acolyte into Flame Strike. Yeah,
this is again, incredible.
A perfect turn for Dog.
Yep.
And it's just, this is kind of a clinic on how the Mech Mage versus Freeze Mage matchup typically goes.
Yep. This is always the way this goes. Like, I'm saying always, that's not necessarily true, but typically, this is what happens. Your Mad Scientists are drawbacks in Mech Mage, because they feed your opponent a Mirror Entity for Doomsayer, so you really don't want to play them, but they're typically your biggest tempo tools to protect your board. In this case, they become a drawback, and your aggression doesn't stick.
Yeah, it's basically like you're playing a deck that has 4 dead cards against this matchup. Mm-hmm. Like, the Mad Scientist and the Mirror Entities are just, you'd never want to play them in your hand or on the board. So you have to rely on not drawing those 4 cards in order to win the game. And even without those 4 cards, you're still unfavored just because of how good Freeze Mage is against aggro decks.
Well, I wonder what LifeCoach is pondering here. I feel like most of the lines of play that he could even be considering to take are just devastatingly bad.
Yeah, this is a turn where like
you play Mirror Entity actually.
Yeah, this is a turn where like I really want to hear LifeCoach on his stream talking about like the possibilities, because I'm really wondering what's going through his head right now.
Yeah, this is the point where I do the escape concede play. I don't know if a lot of people make that play on a daily basis, but that's one of my favorite ones in this position.
Yeah, I like this play though. Like, even if your opponent plays Doomsayer, you're not too sad about that.
Well, goodbye LifeCoach. Alex to the face, reversing switch that Acolyte of Pain, hits for 4, and then win with Frostbolt, Ice Lance.
But
it's possible.
But Kazan Mystic possibility?
I was going to say earlier, and I didn't mention it, but the only way really that Freeze Mage loses this matchup is if the Mech Mage is stacking Kazan Mystics for some odd reason.
Yeah. We do see it a lot on the Chinese server, actually. Back when I was in China, I realized that like pretty much every Mech Mage had Kazan Mystic in their deck.
To counter the other Mech Mages?
It was not only that, but it was to counter other Kazan Mystics. Like,
okay, yeah, you steal my secret, I steal it back.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Because Kazan Mystic is just so common on the Chinese server, because Mid-Range Hunter and Mech Mage are the 2 most common decks on that server.
Well, I remember back when Zoo was always, Chinese servers have Zoo for longer than any other server, I think. And I remember going there and seeing sacrificial pacts in zoo decks to counter other zoo decks, and I thought that was really interesting. You know, if not just straight up funny, but
it is funny. I'll give it that.
Yeah, it was really interesting because I saw Sack Pact in zoo and I was really confused, but then I realized they're just facing zoo nonstop. It's like a 75% zoo representation, kind of like when that priest deck got popular with mind control text and everything. You just saw that nonstop all day.
So yeah, LifeCoach. He has a lot of cards in his hand, but none of them are going to be any good. And Dog's actually going to probably take this game.
You punch face, and then you freeze Alex Straza, you play Tinkertown, and then you taunt it up. I mean, honestly, at this point, I don't even know what you do, but you could theoretically live. The problem is living is not going to guarantee that you pop both the Ice Barrier, the block, and the possible second block. There's too much stuff going on.
Yeah, I don't even think like the taunt even matters at all.
Oh no, it doesn't. It's just gonna stall like an Alex out of emergency coolant, if anything. But it's not even relevant.
Yeah. So at this point, Frostbolt, Ice Lance is gonna end the game in combination with the Fireball, and LifeCoach knows it.
Well, LifeCoach knew this was going to be a bad matchup. We knew Freeze Mage was probably going to be favored into this, which leads me to believe Dog, you know, going to his next deck with, I mean, he's played Mage, he's got a Priest. We saw the Priest earlier with Death Lords and everything. You said that it was a typically good matchup for the Priest because it's very good against aggro decks. So this is probably going to be exactly that, I suspect.
Yeah, the thing is, like, that Priest with the Death Lords, it's close to like 80-90% against Face Hunter, but it's not nearly that level against Mech Mage because Mech Mage has some cards that can kind of turn everything around. For example, if they get an insane Mecha Warper start, the Priest can't really deal with that because it lacks really the early game AoEs. It doesn't have the Arcanized Circle combos like the typical Priest does, so it has a hard time coming back into the game. What it does excel at, though, is getting an early game advantage with Zombie Chow's Giblin Stalkers in combination with Villain's Chosen.
Yeah.
So I feel like the game is really going to be determined in the opening turns of the game, whether Dog can really draw those cards or whether LifeCoach can get insane Mech Warper starts.
Yeah, and I have to say, honestly, that I'm really happy to see Giblin Stalker played in a competitive environment. It's kind of like, it's one of those cards that you see and you're thinking to yourself when you see it at first, oh, this is a good arena card, right? It's fun for arena, but that doesn't really work in Constructed. It's too slow. It's not impactful enough. It's no Mech Warper in a nutshell. But, you know, a deck like Priest that contains Valen's Chosen has the perfect use for it.
Yeah, like just in the last 2 weeks, we've seen Giblin Stalker being used in competitive play. We've seen Dread Infernal being used in competitive play. And recently, within just today, on the last day of GVG, we've had Warbot used in competitive play.
Yeah, we've seen Warbot and Mech Warrior, so that was really interesting. So it's going to be Priest versus Mage, with Dog, you know, piloting the Priest. Now, I think if LifeCoach gets a really sick early start and Dog can't contest it, things are going to go in LifeCoach's favor, but as you said, if the Priest is able to get that Death Lord on the board and Valen's Chosen it, then LifeCoach has to overextend. An interesting thing is that in this matchup, the spare parts play a huge role in the Mage's ability to swing back in the game because something like a reversing switch on a high health minion like Death Lord can really make a huge difference.
Yeah, again, it's just all going to be about the first turns, and it's going to be decided on how the openings really go. Priest doesn't have many options to come back. Mage also doesn't have many options to come back. I mean, they have the Blast Mages, and they can possibly fireball the Death Lords, but when you're fireballing Death Lords, and you get like a Clockwork Gnome out of your Death Lord, that's not what you want.
But one thing I do like though about Mage in this matchup is the Paladin Shredder. That's always a trick card to deal with the Priest, right? It's another 4-attack minion that has 2 bodies, so you can't really deal with it in one swing.
All right, let's see what it is. Opening hand from LifeCoach, I would say not that good.
All right, give me a second, I'll be right back.
All right, the opening hand from Dog also isn't the greatest. Ideally, he would definitely want something like the Zombie Chow and the Giblin Stalker. Like the Villain's Chosen's all very good, but if you keep that card and you don't draw your 1 or 2 drop, you're in a really bad position. Also, I feel like Dog, he's he really hates the fact that he's going first, because if he's going second, he has the possibility of playing a 3-drop on turn 2 and then Mun's chosen it. And that's going to be really great as well. LifeCoach, as usual, he's taking his sweet time to decide his opening picks. I feel like a Neurotron is going to be... I feel like this entire hand isn't the greatest. None of the cards in his hand are very aggressive, and they're not super impactful in the early games, in the early game of Mech Mage. You could possibly keep the Frostbolt to take care of Zombie Chows and Northshire Clerics, but I feel like that's too defensive. And wow, look at that hand from Dog. Giblin Stalker into Velen's Chosen. That's pretty much the perfect start that he could hope for. I mean, he could want a Zombie Chow in his as his turn 1 play, but I think he'll be pretty happy with this.
Alright, I'm back. Alright, so I can tell that Dog did pick up the perfect early game. But then again, LifeCoach's early game is also pretty good. The problem is that Giblin Stalker with the heals and Velen's Chosen might be more than enough to handle LifeCoach's possible good start. A Mech Warper in this hand would do wonders.
Yeah, Mech Warper would be so insane. He could play out like 4 cards in a single turn if he had a Mech Warper.
Yeah, into a perfect Goblin Blast Mage following it up on turn 4.
Yeah, I feel like just a simple Cogmaster BK, but actually, LifeCoach commits a Clockwork Gnome as well to the field.
What I like about this play is that because of a Neurotron, he knows he's going to be able to protect them, so he's going to be getting potentially 10 damage out of the turn 1.
That's true. Ooh, Fireball.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
That's actually going to be really valuable, because if Dog actually does draw a Death Ward, the Fireball might be important to kill off that Death Lord.
Yeah, or even finish off the Giblin Stalker with a single, on a near single strike after it attacks the Neurotron. I wouldn't imagine LifeCoach plays anything here but a Neurotron. I think he's just thinking through the possibilities on the subsequent turns. Because this turn feels like it's pretty mapped out.
Yeah. You are obviously very scared of the Velen's Chosen, so I think you have to play the Neurotron here. And 5 to face, and probably 5 more to face next turn.
Yep, I really do like this line of play from LifeCoach. He's got a really sick start, and Mind Control is going to be pretty much useless for Dog sitting in that hand for probably what is going to be the entirety of the match.
Now, this is actually a pretty hard decision from Dog. You would think that he would have played Velen's Chosen the previous turn, but now it's kind of a difficult decision that he might need to play the Dark Cultist in order to just get more minions on the board.
I think that's the play.
Yeah, in order to bust through the Neurotron.
Yeah, I think this is definitely the play. And this just goes to show the power of the Neurotron. It was designed with this in mind to force you into trades that are going to be hell, because you have to use 2 actions on a fairly weak minion. I mean, it could be a 1-1 for all you care, and generally speaking would be just as frustrating.
Yeah, especially for Priest, because Priest doesn't have ways to deal with the 1-1.
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be... I guess Wild Pyromancer would make it a bit easier, but in general, it would still be a really frustrating minion to handle.
Yeah, Dog has to decide whether he wants to pop this shield. If he does, then he leaves his Giblin Stalker vulnerable, but if he doesn't, he's going to spend the next 2 turns essentially popping this Neurotron.
Yeah. A good thing for him, the Sludge Belcher is somewhat useful. Cabal Shadow Priest is also fairly good. So I think what he's hoping for here is a Holy Nova if he does run one, or even a Light Bomb in the next few turns. That is not a bad pickup. But you kind of want to start healing yourself at this point, right?
I think at this point you're still okay with healing minions. Because in the early game, you really want that board control. In the late game or the mid game, you really want to heal stuff. I think actually this turn you can just Velen's Chosen and drop the Northshire Cleric. You don't need to go for card draw. Just commit as much of the board as possible.
Alright, so get the biggest board you can to contest the upcoming turns, because you do have Sludge Belcher into Cabal, so if you can stabilize, it's kind of like the Zoo thing. There's a tipping point where they can't really pack any more aggression at that point. However, LifeCoach has a perfect way to deal with this board, right? I mean, he has to commit quite a bit of resources, so you might not be willing to do so, but... Well, you know what? That Velen's Chosen play really changed everything for Dog. Because LifeCoach has to debate which line of play to take. One is very removal-oriented, the other one is much more aggressive, where he just goes full face.
Yeah, it all depends on how close LifeCoach thinks he is to closing out the game. Like, he has that one Fireball, but he might not draw into anything in the upcoming turns.
Yeah, I mean, he does have 7 on board. He's got a Blast Mage that could potentially deal a bit more to put the Priest within burst range if he finds a second ball. But if he doesn't find a second Fireball, then this is not going to be an advantage. He's going to be able to press.
Yeah. Of course, every deck has 2 balls, so...
Yep.
Yeah, we're gonna...
You got Cabals, and then you got Fireballs.
Ah, that's true. That's true.
So he does go for the Fireball. He might decide to negate the Northshire Cleric, and I think it makes a lot of sense.
Wow, what a trade.
What a trade. This is actually the entire board. Wow. Now there's no enabler for the Blast Mage. I think Dog is going to be able to stabilize perfectly out of this.
Wow, that was actually really... I didn't expect LifeCoach to play that defensively there. But the Pilot Shredder is a perfect draw here.
Wow, I mean, there's a Cabal Shadow Priest on the other end. It's going to steal that Mech Warper.
Yeah, and not only that, it's going to allow the... now the Sludge Belcher is able to trade into the Pilot Shredder pretty easily.
Yeah, and if it doesn't pop out a Mech, then LifeCoach is not going to be able to enable the Blast Mage. And what comes out? It is a Crazy Alchemist. That is not going to do it. It kills the slime, right? Oh, speaking of the Mad Scientist.
Yeah, there we go.
It is a mad, never mind. So what's the next? We have the Crazy Alchemist, we got the Mad Scientist. What's the next one?
The insane... insane Entropist, I don't know.
Insane Entropist. I made a deranged mixologist, I rember.
Okay,
I felt like that was kind of thematic, but what I'm really curious about is Blizzard is going to go with that theme and make more of those cards, because I really like those 2 drops. Those 2 mana 2/2s that have this really...
wonky side effects.
Yeah, those are really cool. Well, Priest finds Sylvanas going to be even more of a problem for LifeCoach. Let's be honest. Could you double Blast Mage here with the Time Rewinder?
That's certainly a possibility.
But it's so weird. I don't know.
So, given the line of play that's LifeCoach did in the previous turn, I feel like he's probably going to want to go for value even more. But yeah, LifeCoach is just... He's so frustrated at what's happening on the board right now. I think he might really be regretting the line of play that he did, playing so defensively against Priest. Alright, so he just fills up the board now, and I think he's hoping that the Sylvanas will steal something that's not as valuable. No, he plays aggressively.
I think you have to at this point. It's not really consistent with his initial line of play, but he had to play defensively on that one turn, and now he's hoping to find... And he's hoping the Mad Scientist is going to give some good Meritity at some point, or at least force the Priest to play around it to the point where it becomes a hindrance.
Yeah, the problem with this line of play is that you're going to give your opponent whatever comes out of the piloted Sky Golem.
Yep, with Sylvanas.
Yeah.
It's a guaranteed outcome as well.
You're just feeding it to him at this point.
Yep.
And to be honest, I don't really see a way that LifeCoach can claw his way back out of this game.
Well, if he kills the Cabal Shadow Priest.
Oh
wow, that's not a bad draw.
I guess not.
It's not a Yeti, but oh well, never mind.
That's actually not too great now.
Wow, Paladin Shredder for 3 mana for Priest. LifeCoach's lineup was targeted pretty heavily by Dog here. Based on what I saw from Dog's lineup, I think this is just him playing around Mech Mage.
Yeah. The thing is, this game was actually fairly close. It might not look so now, but there was a time where, LifeCoach was very close to lethal if he had gone for a different set of plays. He could have gotten punished, though, in that scenario as well, but he certainly got punished with this the more defensive line of plays that he chose.
Yeah, and I don't think the play to win might have been to just go full face and hope for the Fireball, Frostbolt top decks back-to-back. But he thought that maybe he would be able to contest the board. But, double Belcher, Cabal Shadow Priest, that is a lot of value for Dog.
Yeah, LifeCoach seems to be in actually physical pain right now because he knows he's going to give his opponent a Goblin Blast Mage. Unless he plays the Spider Tank here. You kind of feel like you have to ping at this point, though.
Oh, man.
Do you just Time Rewinder that back? The Blast Mage back?
Yeah, I think you could, yeah. It doesn't even feel too bad. You have to. Now you hope your opponent just whiffs on anything he plays.
I think you need a Frostbolt to kill this Sylvanas in the near future. And wow, this mech warp stealing the mech warper is actually pretty huge. He's gotten to play 2 piloted shredders for at a discount.
Well, at 3 mana, piloted shredder is pretty good. I mean, he's playing it in priest. The amount of value you get out of that minion is like. I hope that when Hungry Dragon does come out, people start playing Hungry Dragon. I really want to see another 4-drop than the piloted shredder.
That's funny. He just heals himself. He's like,
Yeah.
there's no way you can win.
He's playing around MC Tech potentially as well. It's
Yeah,
like it's a
that's true.
really, really niche play, but at the same time, it's guaranteed not to be a drawback. You play it slowly, and you're not gonna get. And you're also playing into Meritity. You're careful.
Yeah. There's pretty much no way that
LifeCoach can
LifeCoach-
claws, but way back in this.
exactly. What happens if 4 Blastmate shots goes to Sylvanas and he steals the Clockwork Gnome? Maybe then? No, not even then. Doomsayer? No.
Oh man, Doomsayer
Doomsayer
would have been crazy though. But I think the priest would have still gotten the edge over time. With the mind control, first minute it comes out, you just take it.
Let's see.
Wait, is Piloted Shredder really 2 mana? Wow. Pint-sized Summoner and Mech Warper
That's
acting
insane.
together. And Dog goes for the safe play. Mind controls the Blast Mage. Makes sure that there's no possible damage output, and LifeCoach is going to be losing this series here 3-2 with a...